Grossman, and my guest this evening is Father Farrer Capon. He is assistant to the rector at St. Luke's Church, Episcopalian Church in East Hampton, and more than that, he's a very, very serious writer. 17 books.
17
books so far, and then further he's a musician, and he's a teacher of fine cooking, and he's kind of a Renaissance person here in East Hampton. This book writing business, I mean, this is a very intense activity of yours. Why?
Well, I started writing way back, I guess when I was in high school, and wrote somewhat through college, but I didn't write any books until about 1965. I had done a lot of writing of articles and things before that, but the book writing came along, and I started out to write a cookbook, and I got derailed on the second page, and it turned out to be a book on marriage and the family. Then I wrote another book, which didn't turn into a cookbook, and finally I started a book with a recipe and made it. That was called The Supper of the Lamb, and that one turned into a cookbook.
Your interest in cooking is based on, like, what?
Well, it's based on the fact that during the Depression, my parents both worked, and I went to Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan. I got home before they did, and I was stuck with cooking for dinner at night. And I just got into it that way and kept at it ever since.
Now, you really object to being called a gourmet cook.
Yeah,
Why
I think the word
so?
gourmet is sort of puffery. For my money, there are two kinds of cooking: good cooking and bad cooking. And I mean, there are no recipes that a recipe can be done well or badly, but there are no recipes that are better than others because they can have the name gourmet slapped on top of them. If they're well executed and well thought out, great. If they're not, terrible.
Now, you give courses, you give lessons in cooking here in East Hampton.
I've taught cooking classes for a long time. Every year now, on the first Saturday in November through April, I do a cooking class at St. Luke's for the parish. And we get about 30 to 35 people out to that and jam them in the kitchen and carry on at great length.
Now, you appear to have a kind of eclectic taste in the kind of food you cook.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. My family background is Swedish, Scandinavian. So there's a little bit of that in it, but French, Italian, German, Thai, Chinese. At one point I was flown over to Japan to write the preface for a book on Zen temple cuisine, very fancy, elaborate Buddhist vegetarian cuisine, and that was fun. But Armenian, Greek, you name it. I like food.
What does it take for people to be good cooks? Like food like yourself, or is it some special knack?
I think basically you have to enjoy the process, and you have to be able to think like the things you're dealing with. One of the things you have to do is you have to think like an oven. If people, they have a recipe they do in the oven and they're going to multiply it 4 times for a party, you have to think like an oven and remember that the oven is going to react to that additional quantity of food by not being hot enough for quite a while again. And you have to think that way. You have to delight in process. So you have to delight in the way flour thickens sauces. It's that kind of intellectual fascination, I think, is at the bottom of a lot of good cookery. And beside that, you have to have a nose, because most tastes are smell. Salt, sugar, sweet, and sour are not, but the rest of everything is smell. And it helps to have a nose memory for tastes that you can say, taste something and say what's in it.
You used to be heavy, now you're not?
Yes, I was at one. I topped out at 230 at one point, and then slowly worked my way down over many years, mostly by running. So.
You have strong views on, well, the word gourmet and on cooking in general, and you have some kind of, I'd say, strong views on religion. Let's just jump to this recent book, right. Health, Money, and Love, Why We Don't Enjoy Them, which is well, a somewhat argumentative title, because I would think most people would think that if they had health, if they had money, if they had love, they would indeed enjoy them. And one of your conclusions, well, give me your conclusion. Well, why don't we enjoy these 3 items?
Well, basically, we don't enjoy them because instead of pursuing the subjects themselves, we make up religions about them. Money is the easiest one to do because money can do a number of things for you. It can, feed you and house you and clothe you and provide you with what amusements you can manage. And yet, that isn't the main thing about money. Is its own religion. It has to be accumulated because it has to be accumulated. It has its own rules. And it is not something that we simply enjoy. If you have money, you have to guard it. But one of the great things that came out with all the lottery millionaires is that there's now a Lottery Millionaires Anonymous to help all these people deal with the terrible problem of having a lot of money. Why? Well, we think that we would go on just sort of spending it and doing interesting things, but the money itself becomes a problem. One of the things I did one Sunday in church in a sermon, when I was talking about money and people's attitude toward money and proving that it was a religion, is I took a $20 bill into the pulpit with an ashtray and a good cigar, and I lit the $20 bill, lit the cigar with the 20 and let it burn up. And the incredible thing was that people's reaction to that was fantastic, because the first thing they said, wasn't a real 20, was it? I said, oh yes, it was a real 20. And the second thing is the feds are going to get it. The temple police will come after me to prosecute me for this blasphemy. What they saw was blasphemy. That's how they felt it. You shouldn't do that with money. Well, where's my 20? Actually, it isn't my 20. It belongs to the government. That's another lie. It's not mine. It's rented to me. But the point is that that was just a shocker designed to say that you do have a religion, that I have done something that ought not to be done. I've taken one of the screws out of the universe that you've constructed in your head. And that sort of thing is one of the ways it proves it's, it is a religion. And love is another religion. You fall in love with somebody. Marriage can be turned into a religion. It very commonly is. Because what do you get when you marry? Basically, you get two people. I get you, you get me, period, end of subject. And we get whatever we are, which is not so hot in a lot of places. But on top of that, we put this tremendous code of religion that marriage is a state made in heaven. Marriage is a state that will take care of us, that will enable us to live happily if we obey its rules. And then when we break the rules, we blame the other person for breaking them. And all this guilt. The religion is a guilt manufacturing process. And that kind of thing derails a tremendous number of marriages.
Well, how should marriage be conducted?
Marriage should be conducted as two human beings living with each other. And the most important, I'd say there are only two things you need in a marriage, and that's fairness and forgiveness. Fairness on your part and forgiveness when you don't get fairness from the other person. And if you got those two things, you have a chance. But if you don't have those two things, sooner or later, you're going to slap all kinds of requirements on each other. You must, for example, infidelity or lying or being a poor provider or something. These things are held over people's heads. They become unforgivable. And one of the hallmarks of religion, of course, as it historically has been, that it does make a list of unforgivable things, things that will get you in Dutch with the deity of marriage in this case, the deity of money in the other case, the deity of whatever religion you're talking about. The fascinating thing about both Judaism and Christianity, of course, is that to a very large degree, they are anti-religions. They don't look like religions. In the Old Testament, the God of the Hebrews didn't look like all the other real honest-to-goodness gods. The real honest-to-goodness gods had shrines and sanctuaries and statuary and holy places and all kinds of rituals which had to do. The God of the Hebrews had a name you weren't supposed to pronounce. He had no place at the beginning. He indwelt the tabernacle, which was a tent that they took down when they moved and put back up again. And he dwelt where? In the empty space between the two angels on the top of the lid on the tent, in the ark in the tabernacle. And so that it didn't look like a real religion, and it wasn't. Now, Judaism, between then and the time of the prophets, got religionized to a large degree, and then the prophets come along and start to de-religionize it. And Christianity, when you come to it and look at what Jesus is saying, what he's really saying is that he's not the founder of a new religion. He's the announcer of the end of whatever it was that religion was trying to do. This whole business of, I have to do this in order to get myself right with God. He says, forget that. I die, I rise, it's all taken care of. It's all free. And that's where Paul comes in. That's Paul's great gift, was to rescue that truth, which would have been swamped and has been swamped many times in the history of the church. There's no question that Christianity has been turned into a roaring religion too. The angry God, the God who's going to watch you, the God of the TV evangelists who's going to keep score on you, and is going to, you mustn't sin because God will hate. That's all baloney. In Jesus, God says, your sins are forgiven, whatever they are, which is outrageous. But because religion is very sensible and very careful and respectable and proper and agreeable to human nature, and any announcement of free forgiveness is not.
Before we jump to, we hit money, we hit love before health, how are you able to function in the Episcopalian Church? I mean, you're a fairly irreverent, you're a fairly iconoclastic kind of guy. The Episcopalian Church is a fairly structured church, it's a fairly traditional church. How are you doing in that church?
Well, the great thing, of course, is the Episcopal Church reads every Sunday at every service. It reads 2 or 3 lessons from the Bible. Mm-hmm. And there it sits, a keg of dynamite, those lessons are. Challenging, Jesus' parables. He tells these terrible parables about this absolutely no good son who wastes all the money and whores around in the far country, and then finally comes home, and the father doesn't know why he's come. Maybe it's a pit stop. But the father sees him, runs down the road, kisses him. After that, the boy makes his confession. The confession is essentially irrelevant to the welcome, just sort of recognized. And then starts a party. And then Jesus brings on the last character in the parable, who's the elder brother, who comes in and has this long list of complaints. This no good, rotten brother of mine, and you have provided the fatted calf, all that nonsense. And the point is that the elder brother represents the human race in its religion and bookkeeping and scorekeeping, and you should only get what you deserve. And the father and the prodigal son represent this free forgiveness business.
Well, how much trouble have you had over the years with the hierarchy of the church and certain, I suppose, less than flexible parishioners?
Well, not a great deal, as a matter of fact, because there it sits. Eventually, people will, while you're preaching this sort of thing, they will smile and they will say yes, and they will look relieved because, all the bad news that God is keeping score on you, is going to get you, has been taken away. But then, in the 10 minutes it takes them to walk from church back to the coffee hour, they will come up to you and say, but what about hell? What about my rotten brother-in-law? What about Hitler? Should they be allowed to do that? And the answer is, God allows it. He does.
Because there was a letter in the East Hampton Star, a nasty letter about you. I can't see who would write this, but some woman did, and she said, I've come to the conclusion that Father, she puts quotes around Father, Capon is more suited to the culinary arts than he is to cultivating the soul. Even his name is associated with food. You have heard of Capon chickens. Apparently he's not into subtlety. My grandmother would have turned over in her grave if she knew what St. Luke's Church has been turned into, and so forth. I mean, there are some, obviously, people who are not too satisfied.
My point of it, those are the people who have never listened to the lessons. They've never listened to the scriptures being. They've heard them, but they didn't. I mean, all they do is when they hear, say, the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, this guy hires laborers, he hires somebody at the beginning of the day, and they work 12 hours. Somebody 3 hours later, they work 9, noontime 6. Finally, at the 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he goes out and hires a bunch of drifters who are going to make the price of a six-pack for 1 hour's work. And then he pays them all off, and he pays the guys for 1 hour the same full day's pay that he agreed with the 12-hour workers. And people have heard that for years, and they hate it. That's unjust. It's unfair. And Jesus' parables are not answers to people's questions. Jesus never answers any questions people have because they always ask the wrong questions. Jesus' parables are designed to suggest questions they never ask. Like, how is the universe run? Is it run by bookkeeping or is it run by forgiveness?
Well, let's talk some parables of sorts of Father Capon here. You talk in this book, Health, Money, and Love, about, you're talking about God, and you're talking about, I mean, this is kind of deep stuff. Second question, if God is no better than we are, which is, I mean, this is fairly revolutionary for somebody in religion to say that, hey, no, it's not a supreme being, is no better than. Then you talk about how luck.
I didn't mean he's no different than we are. In terms of his behavior, he's no better than we are. We're better than he is. I mean, we are, as a matter of fact. That we do not endorse the idea of the crucifixion of our children. He does. on the grounds that this is his work and this is the way to get the job done.
Really, huh?
Yeah, there's no question. Not of all children, but of his own son, Jesus. That's there on the face of it. And God is less just than we are. I mean, look at the history of Israel. He comes on strong, he gets these people out of Egypt and leads them through the wilderness and gives them the law, and then gives them Jerusalem finally and the temple and the kingdom. And then from there on, it's straight downhill. First of all, the kingdom breaks up into two separate monarchies. Second of all, every steamrolling superpower in the ancient world rolls over Israel. I mean, this is God's favorite.
The modern world, too.
Yeah, modern world, that has never stopped.
No.
But here's God's chosen. This is God's chosen instrument. This is the people through whom he will show his true colors. He beats up on them for 800 years, 2,000 years, whatever, 3,000, however you want to count it. And he does that, the Christian answer to this, he does that because the place where God works is not in good behavior, and it's not in the world getting its act together. It's in the passion of the world, in the disasters of the world. And that it is basically in the passion of Israel, the suffering of Israel, that God's purpose is continuously manifested. And it is in the passion of Christ and the passion of the whole world, because what Christians believe is that Jesus' death and the power of his resurrection is in every death, every human death, whether they're Christians or not, maybe even chickens, cows, dogs, and tomato plants. But see, one of the things is we're so afraid of death. Death, as a matter of fact, is the engine by which the created order runs. I mean, if it weren't for death, there'd still be sand outside, but 600,000 years worth of leaves have died, and therefore we have topsoil. And there is nothing living that doesn't live off the death of other things. Even vegetarians live off the death of lettuces. So this whole business of the real balancing of creation, the real reconciliation of creation, works through the engine of death. And all that's announced preliminarily in the history of Israel and in Christ is that the engine of death is the engine of the new order, as well as the old order.
But like you talked, too, about how luck and chance seems to be the dynamic of the universe, the theological dynamic, rather than some kind of purposeful God and so forth. I mean, the way I would read it.
Well, a casino owner who is making a profit with an honest casino that runs by chance is, doing something. He has plans. God has plans, but he uses chance mostly. Every now and then there's a miracle. Every now and then, for purposes known to him mostly alone, he will put his finger in the pie to throw up a sign about something. But most of the time, even in the Bible, everything works by the bouncing of the creatures in the universe together in their dance. Their dance. I mean, God is not a puppet master. God simply doesn't. Why doesn't God stop wars? The answer is, I don't know. He doesn't. Why doesn't God, save children from dying? I don't know. He doesn't. He really doesn't. Why doesn't God save us from dying? He doesn't. He dies in our death and promises a resurrection, but he doesn't stop it. And to me, the great thing about that is that it's the utter realism of it. And the utter realism of the gospel message, that you're not required to believe any kind of sort of overblown, religionized theory that won't bear scrutiny and comparison with the facts. But I'm totally orthodox, as a matter of fact. God is God. He's certainly utterly different than we are, and yet he is not the God we have created in our own image, which is the infinite meddler, the infinite string puller, the infinite busybody, the infinite mother-in-law. That's the God we have made. The God of most religions is the infinite mother-in-law, who comes by and says, first thing in the house, she looks at the crystal ashtray she gave you for Christmas presents, looks for chips on it. That's what most people think God is. I mean, you walk in before God, he's going to look at you and say, you got a little sin somewhere, huh? He's not. It's the prodigal son. What did Jesus say he was going to do? He's going to run down the road first time he sees you without even looking at you or asking you a question and throw his arms around you.
Why did you choose the Episcopalian Church? Swedish people mostly are Lutheran.
Well, both my grandfathers were British.
I see.
And I simply grew up as an Episcopalian. And I started to study for the priesthood so early that I started at 17. So.
Why?
I did. I was going to, the real reason, the real proximate, immediate reason, I was supposed to go to Webb Institute to train in naval architecture and marine engineering. And this was during the war, and the Webb Institute went under the Navy V-12 program, and I couldn't read the chart. I couldn't find the chart on the wall without my glasses, so I took my paper slippers and left the physical and never could take the entrance exams. So after 3 months of mechanical engineering at Columbia, I went and saw the chaplain. He said, "What are you waiting for?" I said, "Am I waiting?" He said, "You're waiting. Stop waiting." So he made an appointment with my bishop for me, and that was it.
I mean, you were a deeply religious person then?
Yeah, enough. No, yes, I was active in the church. I was, I practiced my religion, and I had begun to read and study, and it was perking from the time I was about 16. I hadn't thought of it much before that.
You haven't gotten to health. Let me go back to money for a second in terms of why we don't enjoy them. Now, you are in the middle of kind of a bifurcated congregation, I would bet, out here. Local people, year-round people in East Hampton, and some of the richest people in the world who come out here on weekends or what have you. Do you find sometimes that you're functioning with people from, like from Babylon?
You mean Babylon
in the metaphorical sense? These people, I mean, some of them are so rich and so wealthy that perhaps some of your theological lessons are lost on them?
No, I don't think so. Theological lessons are regularly lost on all kinds of people, rich and poor. But the point is that some people with money have seen through the religion of money. Some people without money have never seen through it, and vice versa. So you have to take them as individuals. Some people with money really know how to give it away. Other people with money, the Hamptons are famous for them. You go out for a drink with them, and the bill comes, the check comes, and they say, "Oh, I left my wallet." I've been stuck that time so many times, paying for somebody else's invitation to go out for something. These people don't give money away. They hold on to it. Well, it's one of the diseases of money, and one of the faults of the religion of money, that it's got rules, that you don't give it away.
We have to jump to health because it's really important. Why don't people enjoy health? They just take it for granted, I suppose?
Oh, no, health is health. Health is a positive condition of the body by which it operates and throws off most invasions, reliably. That's health. But how do you get health? Well, the best thing to do to get health is simply to do what your body needs, which is to feed it decently and to run it, exercise it decently. And that will take, unless you've got contraindications like real complications, hereditarily, something else, which people have, but forget that for a minute. Most people, if they did that, would be fine, because health is not some remote thing that you have to buy 8,000 bottles of this or that to get. It's not something you have to have a certain type of running shoe to get. These things are nice, but the religion of health exalts these things. You have to have the right clothes to run. You have the right vestments to run in. You have to have a clock on your wrist. If you're running, I used to meet somebody who was preparing for the marathon when I ran on Shelter Island. I would stop, we were going to talk. He never stopped jogging in place. I said, "Why don't you stop?" "Oh, you can't stop." "Why can't you stop? If you want to stop, you can stop." But there are rules. And there are all these rules about this religion of health.
It's interesting, I think in your 17 books, you do a lot of fiction in the standard of the kind of conventional novel, like to use the word conventional in front of you, the novel form. You get into essays. You get into almost like kind of a screenwriting or playwriting kind of motif. You mix it all together. Why?
Well, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I like to do things that I think, I always talk to the reader when I write. I'm always thinking of someone listening to this. And therefore variety and change of pace and a different angle on the way to approach a particular part of a book or subject in a book, I think is all to the good. It's like people serving macaroni and cheese every night. You vary things. Macaroni and cheese is fine. If it's well made, it can be terrific. But every night, no. So lots of different styles.
The book project you're working on now is about?
The next one is going to be a fairly theological work on the whole business of what is called in theology the mystery of Christ. So, I mean, I'm very at the beginning of it. I hate beginnings, so I never talk about books at the beginning. I have lots and lots of notes, and I'm busy trying to hold them together.
You're able, it would appear, to do about a book a year.
Yes, sometimes. Some of these books, this one, the Man Who Made God in the Bar, I got up to 25 rejections on. No one would even touch that with a 10-foot pole because they thought it was irreligious because it's funny. It is what's the life of Christ. It's a transposition of the gospel narrative into Cleveland, of all places.
Well, that's a religious center of sorts.
Yes, yes.
Father Capon, we're out of time, unfortunately. Go look for some of his books. I'm Karl Grossman. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.